I didn't even know what computer science was until college.
And how did you guys kind of have like an active mindset to combat against the dunya tendencies?
So they actually told us to stop working on it.
What was kind of going through your mind and your co-founder's mind?
So we like went above and beyond.
Assalamu alaikum warahmatullah. Everybody, we're here on Habibi Tech here in New York City with Dawood Khan, the founder of Gradio, and recently acquired by Hugging Face. We're excited to kind of dive in and hear your adventure and see how you went from 0 to 1, as many say in the startup world. You're local to New York through and through, or are you a transplant?
Yeah. First of all, I mean, thanks for having me, guys. I'm from Queens, born and raised in Queens. I lived in the Bay Area for a couple of years. That's where kind of Gradio all started and originated. But yeah, back in Queens, through and through. My parents are still here, family's here. Yeah.
So coast to coast.
Exactly.
Didn't make a stop in Dallas, unfortunately.
Yeah,
but maybe next
Dallas.
time, inshallah. We'll see you there when we're able to convince you.
Yeah.
So when did you mentioned you went to the Bay Area? Was that after college, or did you do university there, or what kind of took you there?
Yeah. So I went to NYU here in New York. That was also just a kind of a culture shock, to be honest, even though I'm from New York. NYU is a very like private school. You're not really going to school with New Yorkers. But then after NYU, graduated with a computer science degree, went to the Bay Area, worked there as a software engineer for a year, and then after a year, quit and started Gradio.
Wow. Where were you working in the Bay?
Yeah, I was at DJI, so the drone company. I was an iOS engineer working in their research department with like the iOS SDK and some computer vision stuff, and it was a really like researchy, experimental type of department, and it was a really fun job, actually. Really fun job. It was a small office in Palo Alto. We had a little flight cage as well. We experimented with all the drones, doing just like really cool projects. It was a fun job for sure.
Okay, DJI is not a small company by name or brand or what they have done in the drone space, especially for commercial drone pilots.
For sure.
So this isn't the time to be humble. But that's like a very difficult role to kind of step into. You must have been pretty sharp. I'm sure you're really hardworking.
Yeah.
And you mentioned you did computer science at NYU. Have you always been like a technologist at heart? Like growing up, were your parents like, "Hey, here's a radio, like build it out," or did you kind of have to really sharpen your programming ability and everything going into university?
Yeah, no, I was definitely late into the whole tech world. My parents were really hands off growing up in terms of like education stuff, school stuff. I didn't even know what computer science was until college. Like literally, I thought programming was something like PhD level people did in a super lab, and like I didn't know it was accessible. Like you could just do it at home and create an iOS app. Wow. Once I found that out, I think it was someone in college mentioned that they had coded an iOS app. I kind of just overheard a conversation, and I was like, "What? Like you can just do that from home? Like as a student, you just code an iOS app? That's pretty cool." And I remember looking up tutorials on YouTube on how to do it. And I was actually a pre-med major at the time, kind of just like.
That's a shocker.
Not at all, right?
I swear. I feel like I was like doing like a mental statistics. I'm pretty sure 70 to 80% of the guests that we had had some medical potential or background. So
Yeah. Such a shame. We could have been saving lives, and now I'm just.
I didn't mean it in a bad way. It's just like what our community gravitates towards, right?
Yeah,
so it's
100%.
like the heavy proportion.
Yeah. You kind of just follow. It's kind of just like the default thing. Like I was just like good at biology. It was like the best class in high school, and I was like, okay, this pre-med, I guess. I like there was like no thought into it. It was just
Mine was the exact opposite experience. I realized that I did not want to do pre-med in 9th grade biology.
Oh no!
When they were making me memorize stuff, I was like, yeah, this ain't for me.
Me and the mitochondria aren't too friendly.
Yeah.
I feel like if you haven't gone through the experience of being a potential med student at some point in your career, what's going on, man? You weren't bullied enough at home.
I would say med school just going pre-med route or anything like that definitely teaches you discipline, especially if you don't want to be a doctor.
Oh, yeah.
Right? Like doing the hard thing when you don't want the end result. It's like a different level of commitment.
Yeah.
Which I think maybe gears you up a little bit more for like the startup world.
Yeah.
Now, do you have any siblings, or are you a single child?
Yeah. I have 2 sisters, one older, one younger. But neither of them were doctors either.
Gotcha.
None of us turned out to be doctors.
Was that ever a pressure from your family for any of y'all of going in a particular like career path?
No, it was different for us. I know that's the case for like a lot of, you know, like they see immigrant kids, their parents pressure them to go into a certain, you know, career path. Our parents were pretty hands off. Yeah. I mean, they were just working all the time, like day in, day out. My mom would work at night, go to school during the day, so I barely ever saw her. My dad would leave for work at 4 a.m., come back late at night, 10 p.m., so I barely ever saw him either. Like, as a kid, like 5, 6 years old, I would have the key to our apartment and come home by myself, you know, just like to an empty apartment, just me and my sisters. So, yeah, alhamdulillah, it all worked out. You know, they worked really hard for us, but yeah, it was very much like a hands-off, you know, you kind of figure out your own path type of thing initially.
So sure. were you born in the U.S. or did you guys immigrate here? Or
yeah.
What's the story there?
Yeah, no, I was born in Queens, Flushing, Queens. Yeah, 1-bedroom apartment, 5 people, you know, very much, you know, below the poverty line, on welfare type of situation. But yeah, it worked out.
How was it growing up, like with your mom going to school and things like that? Like, in hindsight, was that inspiring? Was that, you know, what was that? Because I think there's a lot of times with our parents where, you know, when they immigrate here, there's a lot of challenges and there's a lot of unfulfilled dreams. Yeah. And I mean, I still encourage mom. I was like, hey, like, if you want to go to college and like get, you know, a home design degree or whatever it is, like, do it. Just you have it. Like, how did that feel for you in hindsight?
Yeah, I know. When I was a kid, I remember just seeing her like constantly, like barely getting any sleep. She would come home for a couple hours, take a nap, be tired all the time, and then having to leave right away for, you know, for her second class of the day or, you know, for work. And I just remember like all the sacrifices she made, just constantly working so hard, and that definitely instilled that work ethic in me for sure. Just by seeing her do what she does. Yeah, it's
now, did your sisters go any of the traditional routes like engineering?
Yeah, no, my younger sister is a designer. Like graphic designer. She works at a startup, and she really enjoys that. I kind of pushed her towards that because I saw she had like a creative edge, but I still wanted her to work in tech. So I was like, become a product designer, graphic designer. It's still like more of a secure job than doing anything else. And then my older sister works in healthcare tech. Yeah, she works as a project manager in healthcare tech. Okay. So yeah, we're all kind of tech adjacent, you know. Yeah.
So when it came to like going into the engineering world, were you coming in with like a hobbyist mindset, or was it more of a, hey, you know, this is a fulfilling job, it pays well, I'm kind of decent at it? Or was it more so like, oh, I love hacking and building things? Like, what was, because I feel like a lot of comp sci people kind of fall into like 2 chambers. One is that I just want to game, do my hobbies, and just have a decently solid 9 to 5. Yeah. Or those who are like, I want to build and create and like change the world, right? Where did you kind of find yourself in what bucket going into university?
Yeah, it was interesting because this was like my junior year. I'm finishing up my pre-med requirements, and I learned to make an iOS app on the side, and I realized, okay, this is pretty fun. Like building an iOS app is pretty cool. Maybe I should take the iOS programming course at NYU just for like as an elective. But I realized you need like 3 different prerequisites, computer science class for prerequisites to take the class. I somehow finessed it and got in without those prereqs and became a TA for that class actually. Without those, it's crazy how
far
you
go.
Does that answer your question?
Yeah, it does a little
bit. But that is so yeah. 1, just building stuff was really interesting to me, and 2, I remember looking up, I think highest paid careers like with just a bachelor's degree, and like computer science was that major, like the top of the list, and I was like, okay, this is enough reason for me.
Is this like 2016?
I graduated in 2017, so this is 2016.
Okay, gotcha. I think we Googled around the exact same time then, because I was transferring out of nutrition, and then I was like, what makes money fast? Yeah. And then literally programming was like top one on the list.
We gotta find that original article that ranked that, because that changed the
trajectory drastically, right? I think I just saw the New York Times article and just talks about like very incredible, talented like students like graduating from like top tier universities in computer science for like stuck being unemployed or being baristas.
Yeah, it's a different job market now.
Complete 180 of what that experience is. And I mean, I guess some were saying that if you were like a comm major or an English major, which was the joke back in the day, you're actually better positioned now if you're going towards like prompt engineering and things like that. So interesting how things will change and, you know, grow as this new frontier kind of develops, which I guess why we're here at Habibi Tech, with AI being such a central point of discussion. So you're going through college, you clearly are very much self-driven, you like figuring things out. I mean, whether it be becoming a TA and then becoming an iOS programmer and like teaching the course, which is not something easy, especially at a top tier university. What was your way of kind of decompressing throughout all this time? Because you're obviously not from an affluent background. You're the eldest brother, which has its own responsibilities. You're trying to make your own dreams come true, but also making sure, you're taking care of family, I imagine.
Yeah.
That's a lot of causes for gray hairs, I would say. And Allah Mubarak, you're looking young and youthful.
Yeah.
What kind of kept you grounded?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think... what keeps me grounded? I guess that's a two-part question. Like, how do I decompress? Like, what do I do for fun? And at that time, I did a lot. I would run a lot. I was like into marathoning. Yeah. Oh. I ran my first marathon at 19. Like, I ran the New York City Marathon.
And how old are you now?
I'm 29 now.
You're 29.
This was 10 years ago. Right. This is 10 years ago. But yeah, I would run a lot. And I wasn't a good runner to begin with. I couldn't even run around the block. But again, I had heard someone had run the marathon, and I was like, that's not something I knew you could do. I thought you had to be a professional runner. And immediately that just like set a goal for me. I was like, okay, I want to try this.
I'm noticing a theme. I'm noticing a theme.
So, and then, what else keeps me grounded is just, I think just understanding that like where I've gotten is just purely based like on luck. I think it's just like fortune, or what non-religious people call luck and fortune, we call blessings.
Yeah.
Like it's purely just granted from me. Like I did. It's not like I'm particularly smarter than anyone else or harder working. It's just like this was just bestowed upon me. This is a test, and that's all I can see. That definitely keeps you humble. My religion for sure keeps me humble and grounded.
It's like it's the intersection of preparation and opportunity. Right?
Yeah.
So I mean, I think running is. Are you part of, or do you attend any of like Muslim running club?
Muslim running club. My cousin is the founder of that Muslim running club.
Oh, that's amazing.
So,
we have a chapter in Dallas. I don't know. I think we're the OGs. I forget, but it started with like 5 of us when I started like my Ironman training, and nice. It's grown to a large community now. And then now when I'm like in different towns, like NYC, SF, like they're all everywhere. And I think it's so important to. I mean, I'm biased with my health background, but I think it is very critical to integrating those practices day to day. Now, is your family, like anybody in your family, like entrepreneurial, like in any capacity?
No. My dad, growing up, he worked at 7-Eleven, and then he became a taxi driver. Wow. And then my mom was at school. She was working a small job in an office making photocopies for like a law firm, so she was making less than minimum wage as well. Just like working class, like odd jobs. It was my family came from not even like college educated or career oriented or anything like that.
Man, it's incredible. I'm sure they're incredibly proud of everything you've achieved. All 3 of y'all, I'm sure. So now let's talk about, as you're kind of going from you finish up university, you're in the Bay Area. What was there a culture shock for you going from New York to the other coast?
It was definitely different. This was like right out of college, moving to the Bay. I initially lived in San Francisco in the city, didn't know anyone, and I was commuting to Palo Alto to work for DJI, so like half my day was just spent on the Cal train, and then I would come back to the city because that's where I thought I would like living. Then eventually, like after a year, is when I started to get to know the Muslim community in SF. And SF, the Muslim community is interesting because like once you meet one person, you're connected to the rest of the community very, very quickly. It's very tight knit. Everyone kind of knows everyone. You're just one connection away from meeting everyone. So once you have that like one foot in the door, you meet that first person, then like it just opens the whole world for you. And that happened for me a year in, and then that's where I moved to Mountain View. Actually, after the first year, and I met the Gradio guys, and that's we kind of lived together. We were all roommates, and that's when the Bay Area got fun for me.
Now, was I guess finding your community, your Muslim community, is that something you've always kind of been frequent? Like even growing up, were you frequent meeting other people at the masjid or at MSA? Was that something common to you, or was that a little bit new for you to do going into the Bay? You're like, I don't know anybody. Let me go find the masjid or one Muslim person, then go from there.
Yeah, no, it was definitely new for me. I was never part of any Muslim community growing up. in Queens, we had a couple of like Pakistani Muslim families in my neighborhood, but it wasn't really a community, I'd say. And even through the masjid, it was kind of just like a, mosque here in New York City is kind of, you just go in to pray and then you come out. It's not like a suburban mosque where you're holding community events and there's this and that, and you can take part in like a bunch of different initiatives. We didn't really have that, so it was definitely new for me. I was never part of the MSA either, but I realized after college I wasn't really interested in becoming friends with non-Muslims. I was like, what's the point? It's so I just sought out Muslim friends mainly.
No, were your co-founders also Muslim?
Yeah, all 4 of us are Muslim.
Oh wow, that's amazing. Alhamdulillah. Yeah. We could get the whole crew next time.
Yeah, no, for sure.
Now, were your parents? How'd they feel with you moving? So far away. I'm guessing you're the first one that did that.
No, they were fine with it. Again, I think they understood that I was moving there for a job, and they were like, yeah, of course, like it makes sense. You should go there. Me and my parents, it's not like, again, we weren't like super close to the sense that like, we're hanging out every day, we're having family dinners and stuff. So when I did move, it was good because like when I would go back home, I would spend more quality time with my parents. But I did miss those like smaller interactions, and I did begin to miss them. But yeah, overall they were fine with it. It's really supportive.
In terms of like, the move towards like California, I feel like that's such a big decision, and when you're really thinking about like leaving your family and kind of going into a different environment and space, what kind of made you pick DGI over a couple of these other like opportunities that you had? Like, was it like the computer vision? Because that sounds cool to me, like a little bit of like, oh, it's something new, it's something new. Innovative. What was like the main decision factor for like you to move to California, or was it, hey, like this is like a tech hub, this is like where stuff happens? What was kind of that thought process like?
Yeah, the main decision was actually I watched a lot of YouTube growing up, and I wanted to be a YouTuber, and I was like, all the YouTubers use DJI drones and cameras and gimbals and stuff, and I was like, this is like one step closer. I feel like like if I just work at DJI and get like use these cameras and drones, I'm just like one step away from becoming a YouTuber. And so that's what really like pushed me to join DJI. I thought it was such a cool company, a hardware drone company, and I'm still working on iOS, SDKs, while also like learning about computer vision and this like new research department stuff. And I was like, oh, okay, this is a really cool opportunity. Seems pretty exciting. Yeah.
So was that kind of like the entryway into like some of this AI, looking into AI a little bit more? Was that computer vision your entryway into it?
Yeah.
Or were you doing a lot of other stuff around it too?
No. I have no like formal education in AI. It was all kind of just like, even in DJI, I didn't particularly work directly with like training any computer vision models. It was more of like the tooling and infrastructure around the iOS SDK around the computer vision models. So yeah, I never directly worked with AI models before. Yeah.
And so you were at DJI for about a year, you said, right?
Yeah, just a year.
So then what was the journey after that? Is that when you started to then work on Gradio?
Yeah, that's a good question. So me and my roommates would host these like small little demo days at our house, kind of just like on the weekend, be like, hey, show off what we worked on at work or like on a small side project. We would just put up little, presentation and be like, okay, this is what I'm doing at work right now. Or, hey, I just hacked together this last weekend. And one of these demos, Abu Bakr, my co-founder and also roommate at the time, presented the initial version of Gradio, which is, for those of you who don't know, like Gradio is a Python library for creating web apps for your machine learning model. So, right, you have a trained machine learning model, but you want to create a full-fledged web application. You want to deploy it, collaborate with it, share it, handle all the front end, back end data pipelining for it, which is like 3 lines of Python code. You can have that done. And the initial version of it was very rudimentary. It was because Abu Bakr was working at his Stanford lab and noticed this being an issue of this collaboration issue. And so he kind of just presented this, and then we worked on it on the side, and then I kind of left DJI because of that to work on Gradio. Yeah.
Well, I think there's a couple of things that are interesting. Like, as soon as you said like, oh, we did like mini demo days, like I was like, oh man, that's cool. But I'm a nerd, so I love that type of stuff. I'm like, yo.
Well, I think what's cool about that is that you guys are sharing just like work projects, like what you're working and building on, and I think that is I think during, because this is what, 2019 at this point? Or
yeah, 2019, late 2018, yeah.
Okay, so this is, pre-COVID, right before COVID's about to happen.
Yeah.
And I feel like a lot of people, I'm guilty of this, is that I think there was this kind of I guess, experience of quiet quitting culture that was happening. And, what kind of helped me snap out of it was like the level of like ihsan or excellence, right? And I think when you're working in that type of environment that you are, where you're living with a bunch of other Muslims, you're sharing what you're doing, there's a level of excitement that comes from just being able to share with people that you love, right? Like, oh, this is what I'm working on, which in a weird way, inherently, I think motivates you to work a little bit harder at work, which I think is also a better representation of yourself and the things that you represent too, right? You want to be a person that, I want to hire a Muslim person because they do good work, right? And so it's kind of neat that you guys are showing off where you're spending so much time outside of home somewhere that you're building. And I think getting to share that kind of motivates you to build cool things and just be better at your job, which inherently will make you better at other things too, especially in entrepreneurship. And it helps you think a little bit wiser, which I don't know. I think that's like really unique thing to do because I don't think a lot of roommates do that.
Yeah. No, I got lucky with my roommates. And initially I always saw my job as just a job, I clocked out. I didn't do I wasn't really working on side projects. In my mind, that was like something you did in college to, build your resume up. But once I started living with these guys, I was like, oh, okay, there's some you can build cool stuff on the side and just for the fun of it. I just like to show it off. And I was like, okay.
No, I love that because I had to go to hackathons to get that type of environment. Because Dallas is it's not a very super entrepreneurial city. It's really more corporate based city, I would say. Now, of course, you can find your pockets wherever you go. It's still a major tech hub. So, but for us, I wouldn't be able to. This is the advantage of San Francisco, right? You just go there, and you're more than likely 60-70% of people are going to be some form of entrepreneurial, and if not, at least they'll have some type of a tech background and they're thinking about something in some capacity, right? Yeah. Whereas in Dallas, that's not the case. You have to really actively go out and seek your. But I love that type of stuff. I think it's so interesting because you're basically doing mini prototyping, right? Or figuring out your skill sets and how you can jive and work well as a team, or just just having fun. You're not on a mandate or anything. So right. I always think that's a good environment to be a part of. So basically one of your co-founders, what did you say his name was?
Abu Bakr.
Yeah. That's a beautiful name. So he basically, he's giving this presentation or this demo. What kind of spark? Because I'm assuming that you guys had a couple of these, right? So what made you guys as a collective group be like, oh yeah, this could be something? What was that about Gradio particularly that was this is Gradio. That was hey, this could be something potential.
Yeah, so we never set off for it to be a startup. Actually, it was still from the very beginning, it was since Abu Bakr presented it, kind of just a side project, and it was one of those side projects that stemmed from a real pain point that Abu Bakr was facing. So he was doing his PhD in machine learning at Stanford, and he was building some imaging models to help recognize, I think maybe pacemakers and heart imaging, and he was collaborating with doctors, domain experts. And at that time, there was no tooling around machine learning. It was very rudimentary. The way you would share a model is through email, share a link of a Jupyter notebook, and then the doctor would have to know how to run the Jupyter notebook and then run inference on the model. And then it was a mess, it's impossible to do. So he was like, okay, what if I just give them a link and they could just drag and drop an image and immediately test the model? And so that was the original prototype, was just that image input, image output for a machine learning model. Wow. And so he presented this, and he was like, yeah, I want to build this out to be more components than just images, text, video, this, that. And since it stems from a real pain point, he was like, why don't we just work on this together, as a side project? I think it'd be cool. It'd be cool for me to work on, in my lab and collaborate with doctors on. And we were kind of just like, yeah, cool. Let's just contribute to this Python library that was on GitHub. No, anticipation for it to become or no intention for it to become an actual startup. We kind of just worked on it on the side. And then we presented it at Stanford. Abu Bakr actually presented it at his lab at Stanford. And there was a VC scout in the audience who mentioned afterwards, hey, you guys should apply to this incubator, called Peer VC. We think this project would make for a cool startup. You guys should consider that. And yeah, that's when we actually started thinking about, maybe that is an option.
How far in were you guys when that idea came to y'all? Was it about a year into this project or a bit longer?
No. It was like a couple months of just hacking on this project. It was still like very much in its MVP stages. No real users besides people in Abu Bakr's lab. It was kind of just like this scout reached out being like, you should apply to this incubator. And then after we applied, the investors there told us, hey, if you guys want to work on this, you're gonna have to quit your jobs. And then that's when we sat together, like all four of us were like, are we actually doing this? Or are we just gonna quit our full-time jobs to do this? There was some hesitation, but eventually we were like, you know what, like we will always find more jobs. This was when the job market was at its peak. It's like you could just go back and find another job, and this opportunity only comes around like once in a while. It seems like a fun thing to do, to work on a project like this with friends too. So like why not?
So let's take a pause there for a second, because, a few thousand miles away, you have family. Mm-hmm. And here they are, their son, who got a great opportunity, went to one of the most expensive universities in the country, and he's about to quit his job. Yeah. What were they thinking?
I didn't tell them. Yeah, I don't think I told them. Yeah. I don't think I told them before I quit. I definitely told them afterwards that I'm doing a startup. I don't even know if my mom fully understands what a startup is still to this day.
I understand what you mean by this.
She sent me a screenshot of an Amazon store link, and it was a picture of a radio. And the name of the radio was Gradio. Like the brand name was Gradio. She's like, "Is this your company?" I was like, "No, that's not my company." So yeah, I don't think she still fully knows, to be honest. But yeah, I mean, it sounds like it's a big risk to take, but honestly, in the moment, it didn't feel like too big a risk, because we had already been accepted into the incubator. The incubator is giving us a little bit of funding, $150K for the summer, which is enough to pay our salary for like X number of months. And if it didn't work out, we could just go back on the job market, try to start interviewing and stuff. So it seemed like, it's like on paper, it seems like a big risk to quit your job for this, this big question mark of a startup. But alhamdulillah, it worked out. And it wasn't too big a risk.
What about your co-founders? What were they thinking? Do they have like a similar background to you? Like, ex-pre-med, or what was like, did you guys kind of all were in that same mindset, or was someone a little bit apprehensive and you guys kind of had to convince them?
Yeah. I think we were kind of all on board. Ali Abid, who's so there's four of us co-founders: me, Abu Bakr, Ali Abid, who's Abu Bakr's younger brother, and Ali Abdullah. So there's two Alis, but the two Alis are not brothers. So it's a bit confusing. But yeah, Ali Abid was at Google at the time, and he was a little more hesitant to quit, because in his mind he was like, I could do both. I could work at Google and also like do the startup. Like there's no reason for me to quit. I can, like Google is not working me that hard. I have free time, but it took some convincing for him to actually quit his job. And we got there eventually. Abu Bakr took a leave of absence from his PhD to do this. Mm-hmm. But for him, it was always like he could just go back. He could just like continue where he left off. Ali Abdullah was at Tesla. He was doing mechanical engineering, but he wanted to break into software. So this was like a good pathway for him to do that. So yeah, we kind of all had our reasons, and we kind of all on board from the get-go. Yeah.
MashaAllah, Mubarak. What a degree background for every single co-founder here. Right. That's incredible.
I was gonna say that's awesome. And it's like you guys kind of found your way to basically valid. Like a lot of people I talk to, at least, like the hardest part is like, how do I get the first customer? How do I talk to actual target audience? How do I actually find a real pain point, and how do I validate it? For you, now I understand what you mean. Like it's kind of just like barakah, right? But like luck kind of just like happened in a way, or the cards just folded in a way that like a lot of those things were kind of validated in some degree, right? And then funding was there. So you're kind of in this space where you have like an idea that could have some legs. People have enough faith in it that they're willing to invest and risk some of their capital for it. You guys are willing to go take this leap and kind of do it, to pursue this. How did you guys take like a research-based project and then make it into something that's like productizable, right? Or like something that can go to market. How was that transition like? Was that something that was a challenge for you guys, or how did you guys make that change and transition?
No, it was definitely a challenge. I wish it was as easy as, we got into the incubator with this project and we just worked on this project and, it came out to this outcome. But actually our investors invested in us because I think the team and like just our strength and the company backgrounds that we come from, we're all technical, but they didn't really have faith in the product and the idea. It was an open source Python library, so like, it's just a free project anyone can download and use online. They didn't see any value in it at the time. Investors weren't really open to this, like, start a company based on open source repo. Now they are. It's a good way. It's a huge like growth lever for gaining developers. But at the time, no, they weren't. So they actually told us to stop working on it. They explicitly told us stop working on Gradio, and talk to your customers. Talk to like enterprises, talk to the heads of AI, heads of machine learning, the CTOs of these companies, and find out actual enterprise problems and try to solve those. They didn't like us working on this dev tool. So that's what we did. For the first year, actually, we kind of just pivoted around and trying to like solve these enterprise problems that we weren't particularly like, we didn't have any experience in. We're all technical people too, so we're not good at sales or, talking to these large corporations and businesses to try and sell them a pilot. We ended up getting a few pilots here and there to try and solve some like data cleaning, data augmentation use cases. But we were kind of just like floundering about for a year, trying to figure out this, enterprise problem that these investors wanted us to solve. And then without them knowing, we kind of just went back to Gradio because we saw it was like getting a couple stars, GitHub stars, like every day. And so like some people were still using it, even though it was like deprecated essentially. We hadn't worked on it for a year, no improvements, but people were still using the product. So we were like, maybe there is something here. And sure, it might not make money, but at least like we can build something to like where people are actually using it instead of just like pivoting around trying to solve a problem that we're just not experiencing. So then we went back to Gradio after a year, built that out, and we gained a lot of usage traction. Our first hire, actually, Hassan Khalik, he reached out to us on Twitter, and he's like a big machine learning influencer, and he reached out to us through DM and was like, hey, do you guys have any internships? I'd like to work for Gradio. And he was like a huge help for us at Gradio, just because he had a lot of influence. He was always pushing Gradio to his following, and so we got a lot of usage from him as well. He was our fifth member of the team, also Muslim guy. It's just happens.
But that's a testament.
Awesome.
I mean, that's being a developer tool is not easy.
Yeah,
they're very like the consumer base is very, very demanding, right? And they're not going to use your tool unless if it's actual value there. So the fact that you had a product out in market, open source, right? Hard to say it's a product if you open source it, but like in terms of like you have a tool, you have something that people are continuing to use, and you're not doing anything on it. Yeah, that's interesting, right? I think that it's hard to translate that to non-devs like that there's inherent value because it sounds like it's more of an infrastructure play. Was that a conversation you had to have with some of your VC and investors? Like, hey, like this is an infrastructure play. Here's why we have to go down this route. And it's not just a, basic consumer product or basic consumer software that we have to it's a little different than that, and here's the down layer impact that can happen from an infrastructure product. Was that a conversation you guys had to have?
It actually wasn't, because thank God at this time they kind of just like maybe like silently gave up on us. We were pivoting around for a year we didn't even have like a problem that we were solving, and they were kind of just like, okay, let them figure it out. They don't seem to be needing any help with what they're doing because they're still trying to figure out what problem they want to solve. So it was kind of just like we went back to working on Gradio without letting them know. They never asked about it. Yeah. So it was, and then once we started growing it is when the interest came from Hugging Face, and then that's when they were brought back into the loop. Yeah.
Got it. So you're seeing like the stars on GitHub. People are, you're getting some traction. What did you guys do then at that point? Did you guys actually reach out to those developers that were using the platform? You brought on this fifth member team, fifth person on the team. It sounds like they were very pivotal to the success of the organization as well. How did you guys what did you guys do in that time period?
Yeah. The good thing about working on developer tools is, developers won't use your product if it's not good. They'll only use it if it's good. There's no like marketing around it. There's no sales around it. That's just like, is the product good or not? Is it useful? Is it valuable? That's it. Yeah, exactly. And also the good thing about working on developer tools is also the feedback loop is really quick, right? Whereas if you're working on a consumer product or an enterprise product, you have to constantly chase feedback, and you're doing like trying to do like hacky ways to try and get feedback. You're offering Amazon gift cards to get an interview, or like, here, fill out the survey, do this. When you're working on a developer tool, they'll just open up a GitHub issue and complain right away. Like they'll be like, this doesn't work. I want this feature, this bug. Like within minutes, and they're very much. If they're using your product, they'll be involved in your product, especially if it's open source. That's the benefit of being open source. And they'll even solve the problem for you since it's open source. They'll contribute to it. They'll make it better, which is great. Developer tools is hard because you have to actually build a product that people want to use that's actually valuable. But it's good that when you have an actual valuable product, it's easier to grow in my case.
But you if I like think about it in dials, right? Like the marketing and the feedback loops are a little bit better, but man, the deep technical expertise is so tough.
Yeah.
Right? Like you have all these mechanics that you have to understand, and you're like a abstraction layer deeper than like a lot of people, because you have to enable them to be able to go solve those problems. So how did you guys like balance being a very deep technical team, but still needing to focus on business and growth? And it sounds like you guys had to go through some of these trials and tribulations for like a year or two, right? To like figure out how to do some of this. But let's fast forward into like, where did you guys land on that? And how did you guys what was like the biggest takeaway of how you pivoted being such a technical team? Yeah.
That was one of our greatest strengths, is that we were all 4 technical co-founders, but also like our greatest weakness, because we couldn't have no sales background, have no marketing background, so we couldn't really solve or create like an enterprise product. I think the cool thing is that since we worked on this developer tool and we got people to use it, sorry, can you repeat your question?
But I guess like the summary of my question is that you guys had such a deep technical team.
Yeah.
And I find that with a deep technical team, it makes sense for this type of product, because it's such a technical, it's infrastructure play, right? Yeah. Your customers are all technical people, so you have to really understand that rhythm. How did you guys, but naturally, right? Like you need to have someone who's focused on the business, the growth, the market, even though it's more technical audience, but you still have to focus on some of these mechanics. How did you guys like figure that out as a team? Like, hey, like we're all 4 technical.
Yeah.
Who's gonna do this?
Right.
Right. I know we don't like it, but like, hey, someone's got to be focused on like how we grow the KPI or whatever, right? Or whatever that looks. Who's gonna go raise money, right? All these things like. So how did you guys like take that component and like, did you guys have to like skill set growth your way into it? How was that journey like?
No, that's a great question. We never really had a clear separation of tasks. Abu Bakr was always the CEO, because he had the very he was very much like the domain expert in machine learning, and deeply technical as well. But we kind of all wore all the hats. We kind of all did technical work, business work. We all interacted with the VCs. We all made decisions together. So it was very unique in that way. And when we would describe that to our VCs, they were always like, first of all, co-founders is already like a red flag to them. They're like, that's too many. And then when you tell them we don't really have separation of tasks, like who's the CEO, who's the CTO, like that's what they want answers to those. We would tell them something, but behind the scenes, we were kind of all doing everything. But it actually worked for us. Like no one person only wanted to do the marketing or business. No one person, like we would all kind of just share tasks. And that's what worked for us. Like it worked really well as well. But also it was a lot of just like learning on the job. We're first time founders, like talking to these companies, trying to sell them a solution, trying to build a business. Like what does it mean to actually, productionize this open source library and create a platform and, have customers and developers pay for it. It's something we were learning on the job for sure. Like it was all new to us. Yeah.
So why do you think that that's different for you guys? Because I find myself like that's a challenge. Like if there's like everyone sharing tasks or like, yeah, like Naveed's laughing because I'm always like, okay, I'm always like trying to like separate and organize tasks in my head. But what works for the team works, right? So you guys, it seems like you guys had like unequivocal trust and faith with each other, which is very important. I imagine like the fact that you guys were all Muslims and believing in tawakkul and what's meant for you and some of these concepts that we believe like, hey, it'll work out if it works out, right? Was that kind of the basis of like how things like were able to just flow into it? Because it is kind of challenging to have 4 co-founders that are like sharing all the tasks and responsibilities. Like how was your workflow like, right?
Yeah. I mean, you know, a lot of credit is to like Abu Bakr. He's been a great like manager, team leader as well. Like he'll very much like organize the tasks and like make sure everyone has something to work on as well. Even though like we made decisions collectively, he was very much like guiding the ship, and he's really good at that. And he's definitely grown into that more since joining Hugging Face as well. He's been like our team lead. We've grown the team to like 11 people now. So yeah, definitely a lot of credit to him. But also like we just had a lot of trust in each other. We never got into any big arguments or any big fights. We all lived together, all, you know, Muslim guys. So, you know, we just had that faith-based trust in each other as well.
Yeah, I guess that makes sense, right? Like you've kind of experienced a lot of different.
Yeah, especially when you're living together, there's so much that's happening. I mean, it would be like cleaning dishes or whatever it may be. Now, I have a question that I think a little bit dicey. So there's, you know, within our community spaces, whether it be Muslim or Desi, there's a little bit of a yellow flag when it comes to doing business with other fellow Muslims, unfortunately. Of, you know, whether it be not looking out for the best for your brother or whatever it is, right? Obviously, this is from our own nafs. How did you guys kind of come with a certain like predisposition of that opinion in, you know, you hear in the communities and things like that? And how did you guys kind of have like an active mindset to combat against the dunya tendencies, right? Like trying to get a little bit more just so you feel like you have a bit more and not, you know, wanting the best for each other. How did you guys navigate that, or was that very natural to all of you?
Yeah, alhamdulillah, since we're all like practicing Muslims, a lot of like those decisions, like it came very easy to us. For example, like there was a few cases where if my co-founders weren't Muslim, I don't know how I would have navigated the situation. For example, when we first took the incubator offer, the actual check was interest bearing in a sense. And so for all of us, it was like immediately red flag. No, we have to like negotiate this. And we went back and forth with the VCs. It was a couple times like we had to go back and try to explain to them, like, can you convert this to a safe? You know, YC does a safe. Can you do this? That way we can actually take this. But if my co-founders weren't Muslim, I don't know how like I would have went about that situation. I don't know if I could have like gone forward with it, to be honest. And then there's other situations like, okay, you know, this company is offering an acquisition, but they have like military contracts, like easy no for us all. Like we're on the same page on big stuff like that. So I couldn't imagine like founding a company with non-Muslims. It would just make like a lot of stuff hard and tough. And also, it's just nice when you work with friends, Muslims, like we're all praying together, we're going to Jummah together, back to the office, you know, like, I guess there is like a little bit of a, you know, yellow flag in our community about working. I think there's also just a yellow flag about like working with friends just in general. And maybe that's where it stems from. But for me, like, no, it was a very easy, like, I'd do it again, 100% recommend, you know.
That's incredible. I love that you guys were so grounded on your principles and values. Now, when it came to like, you were mentioning like revisiting that conversation on investing, like how did that go? Like for a lot of, you know, Muslim builders who want to create something, there is this red line for them, like, oh, I can't build because I need money, and all the access of capital has some form of riba or other tendencies. What wisdom could you share in terms of kind of, because maybe they're not blessed to have 3 other brothers that can help them stay firm on those values and principles? What would you be able to share on that in terms of making that conversation a little bit easier to have with a non-Muslim who is offering capital for them to understand, and then also getting the check in a different manner? Yeah.
For us, what helped was just explaining to our VC that like this is, first of all, beginning the conversation with like, it's a non-starter. We can't take this check. You know, it's not like we went to him being like, hey, you know, it'd be nice if like being like, right out the gate, this, we cannot do this because this. We shared some like articles and some information to him about why that is, because it is a non-Muslim person. And then we also offered a solution, being like, listen, we can't take this check, but other incubators offer this type of check, and I know you haven't given this offer to the other portfolio companies in your incubator, but is this something that you guys can do? We'd be willing to sign right away, even if we need to negotiate the amount of check. If we need to like give up a little bit of something to make this happen, like we'd be okay with that too. So yeah, just standing firm in your principles, being able to negotiate like a little bit, pulling the levers that you can, educating, providing a solution, but also just understanding that you can talk your way through these. Like nothing is like a hard set rule with these VCs. It's not like, oh, you have to take this check, this is the only thing we can offer. Like everything is negotiable. Like you can work with people. They're always willing to work with you as well. Yeah,
I like that. I think a lot of it is just having tawakkul that there is a solution, and you just need to be confident that Allah will open a door for you. And I think it comes down to the presence. Like, I like that you said, like, everything's negotiable. And some things I tell a lot of people, like, all the decisions, majority of the time, is a human decision. Some human is making that decision. So you just got to find the right human, and then they'll make it happen. But I think it's also educating, bringing awareness to it. But also the biggest thing, this isn't a conversation. This isn't a debate on your principles and your values, right? Stay firm on what, like, if they offered you $100,000, but you got to eat a slice of bacon, you would immediately say no. It doesn't matter how big the check is, you're going to say no. And this barrier, this goalpost does not change, even if we shift it into a, something else is like, an interest-bearing check or whatever it is. So I like that framework that you're kind of having, and you just come into the negotiation table like, I can't budge on this, but there's areas where you can, and here are the solutions. Would this work for you? Yeah. So I think it's good to kind of have that framework when you're going into the spaces, even if you're alone.
Yeah, I mean, I think the other interesting part is, like, I think people often think that VCs are very set in their ways, and they're not negotiators, and like that's what they do for a living, guys. So it's like, to me, it's like they will come up if they've invested capital in you in some capacity, or they've made that decision that they want to do that. They trust you, right? In terms of like something about your product or your team or something, like they're betting on you, right? At that point, it's like, it's not a question of if, it's a question of how. So if you can come up with like a creative solution, then yeah, it's kind of a no-brainer, right? For them, they're just trying to manage the risk tolerance. So on that note, like, what did that mean for you guys? Like, did you guys take less money up front to offset that risk for them? Because I'm assuming what they offered you was like a check that said, I don't know, like X amount, and then longer or as long as you take, it's going to accrue some type of interest, and then that converts into like a convertible note.
It was a convertible note.
Right, and then that converts into like your equity stake, right? So then did you guys end up moving to the safe? Yeah,
we ended up moving to the safe. We didn't have to negotiate on terms, luckily.
Okay, so that made it
which was good.
Yeah,
it did take some back and forth though. It wasn't like oh, shoot one email, okay, cool, like, here's safe. It was a little bit of education and a little bit of back and forth, especially because like it was a special case. They hadn't offered a safe to their other portfolio companies within the same summer incubator, so it was a little like, okay, we're treating you guys in a special way, like, why should we do that? But I think once they realized like we weren't going to budge on that, it was like a religious issue, there's no way around it. I think they came around.
Some of our listeners may not know exactly what a safe is. Could you take a minute to like describe what that is?
I can't.
Okay.
I don't even remember how it works, to be honest. Maybe you know better.
I can do my version of it.
Yeah.
The long story short of it is, it's just something that Y Combinator came up with. It's a very founder friendly framework. Don't actually remember the exact what the name means, but I think it's simple agreement framework. I don't remember, but basically what it means is like, hey, when you're investing in someone, you don't really know the valuation of the company at the time, and neither does the founder, right? You're kind of usually in pre-seed, seed, so you don't really know product market fit. So it's hard to have a realistic conversation of like, hey, this $25K check or this $100K check is like worth this much of your company. So instead, what you do is you just give it as like a temporary loan, 0% bearing interest loan, and basically like that capital is basically going to convert at some future valuation. And there's like negotiation in this too. You can determine what you want that valuation to be. So you can basically say, hey, post money, it's going to be worth 10 mil. And I think that's how much it will be. So it's just basically like the easiest, fastest way for someone to give a decent amount of capital to a founder without feeling like there's no negotiation that's done. So it's kind of like a framework to then have future conversations on. Then you can basically, when you convert it, then you can have further detailed conversations of, okay, like, do I get priority shares and things like that. So, the problem that YC was trying to solve was like, hey, founders are trying to raise capital and they have to go through all these intense negotiations very early on. Better to just give them capital to unlock more, allow them to continue their journey quickly. So it's founder friendly, but still be able to have a little bit of comfort for that investor.
Gotcha.
So that's kind of the summary of it.
Yeah. So there's 4 of y'all. You guys get secured, get grounded. Is there a moment where you guys were like, maybe we should go back to our jobs?
Oh yeah. During that year where we were pivoting around, we didn't even really have a product that we were working on, talking to these companies, trying to figure out a pain point. And then even if we figured out a pain point, not exactly knowing how to sell a product around that, there was a lot of times there where we thought about, quitting. We definitely lost a lot of motivation towards the end of that year. I remember, I think Aliyaba was actually interviewing at that time too for other jobs. I was actually considering interviewing too. So we were all kind of like had one foot out the door at that point. And then when we pivoted back to the original, Gradio Python library is when we kind of got like reinvigorated, and we gave ourselves a timeline. We're like, okay, let's try this for 3 months and let's see if we make any progress on this library. Like, let's see if we can grow it at all. And then we'll make a hard set decision on if we're like quitting this for good or if we're continuing with it. And that's kind of what we did.
So you guys shift back to what worked in the beginning and getting steam. You get the 5th hire in. When did it become an option for getting acquired?
Yeah, that's a good question. So Hugging Face actually reached out to us to partner, actually, because they saw what we were building. We had this open source Python library, and we were also creating this platform, what we called Gradio Hub. It was kind of like an app store, but for machine learning apps, right? So it was like a web platform. It's what Hugging Face Spaces is today. We were building that at the same time as Hugging Face was, it seemed like. So they took interest in that. They were like, oh, okay, this is, they have a bunch of users. They have a bunch of developers using, Gradio, the Python library. Let's have them integrate Gradio into our platform, and that way they can be like a growth lever for our platform. So we partnered with them. Obviously, we had looked up to Hugging Face for a while at this point. They were like an open source first machine learning startup, really cool company doing exciting work. So we were like, that was an easy yes. Like, let's definitely partner with them, integrate into the platform. And we were like, in the back of our minds, we were kind of hoping they would offer an acquisition if we did good in this partnership. So we like went above and beyond. We're this is kind of like we put everything else on the back burner. We're like, let's make this good. Let's like really impress them, so that way they offer like maybe acquiring us. And that's exactly what happened actually. After the partnership, it went well. They liked the way we worked. The CTO Julian offered an acquisition. He was like, hey, what do you guys think about joining the company? We buy out Gradio. You could still work on the same product, same team, just within Hugging Face. And yeah, that was the outcome we went with. We also like took some interest in like other acquisitions as well, maybe talked to a few other companies, but essentially we always knew we ended up with Hugging Face.
Wow. What was that nerve-wracking for all of y'all? Obviously you can plot a lot of these things out, but when reality is actually happening, what was kind of going through your mind and your co-founder's mind of, did it feel like you're letting go of your baby? Like what was the, you start realizing like, oh, my child has a price tag on it, right? What was that emotional feeling that you guys were going through?
Yeah. So at the moment, it was just a huge relief. It was like, okay, finally, because it was just, at that time, there was just so much uncertainty around like what's happening with the Gradio, what's happening with the team. Are we going back to find a job? Like, what are we doing with this? We just started to see a little bit of success. Hugging Face offers this acquisition, and it's like just a big sigh, like, okay, like this is an exit that we'd be really proud of. We can see this as a success. It's a company that we really want to work for. We've been looking up to, you know. I had talked to the CEO early, like a year prior, just to get advice on our startup. So this is like, you know, this was like ideal outcome for us. So yeah, alhamdulillah, it worked out and we were happy. Yeah, there wasn't any part of us that was like, maybe, you know, we should just continue to work on this for a while, because we had like lost motivation working on Gradio for a while at this point. We lost momentum for sure.
So how's been the transition now being part of Hugging Face and this like post-acquisition role? Because I'm assuming you guys all have a little bit of financial relief. You have somewhat of a job security now that you're building, but what's that post been like? Does it feel different because it's not, you know, fully yours but still yours? How's that transition been? Yeah, the transition has been really smooth, alhamdulillah. Like Clem, the CEO, and Julian, the CTO, have been like really hands off. They've kind of let us operate Gradio as our own team. You know, we dictate our own product roadmap, we do our own hiring, and they've kind of let us just grow Gradio on our own, and they've been pretty happy with the outcome. Right now we have 1 million monthly active developers using Gradio, alhamdulillah. 1 million. Wow,
yeah, amazing.
When we joined, we were at 10K, so we we grew quite a bit. We also, you know, were able to leverage that and grow Hugging Face Spaces and the platform a lot more. So they've been pretty happy with the outcome, and because of that, they've been like kind of letting us do our own thing. They've put no pressure on us to try and monetize Gradio in any way. We've kind of like slightly nudged developers to, you know, upgrade, you know, your Hugging Face Pro account or anything like, you know, so stuff like that, but never like working on a monetization first type of product, which is something that we wouldn't be interested in anyways. We kind of just always wanted to work on Gradio. And so, yeah, it's been good. The company is really interesting because it sometimes feels like it's a collection of like science fair projects, you know, a bunch of different teams working on like cool, interesting stuff at the same time. Kind of siloed off, but you can like easily collaborate with other teams too. Very flexible. Everyone's pretty like motivated to work on this AI thing. It's also just like the right time, you know, with this AI boom. Hugging Face is like the platform for open source devs, so it's been pretty exciting.
That's awesome. So if you had to say one thing about who would be your ideal person to use Gradio?
Yeah, if you're a machine learning developer or a hobbyist AI developer working on a project, and you don't want to do any of the engineering effort around creating a front end, creating a web app around it, handling the back end, you want to just get up and running right away as quickly as possible, use Gradio. It's a great prototyping tool. If you're a machine learning engineer wanting to demo something for your product manager or your team internally, use Gradio. If you want to present something to customers to show off, you know, this new AI feature that you've built, you can use Gradio. And that's kind of what we've seen, you know, people internally, externally using Gradio, from hobbyists to researchers to, you know, large enterprises using it in their team, being part of their workflow. So it's kind of like for everyone involved in machine learning.
That's incredible. Well, Dawood, thank you so much for joining us here at the Caravan Podcast. I think your story from where you started to where you are now and what you're building towards is definitely an inspiration for everyone beyond Muslim identity, and I think it really encompasses so much about the innovation and spirit that we have in terms of building. So, you know, we appreciate you taking the time to come here and join us. We are here at Habibi Tech, wrapping it up with Dawood Khan, the co-founder of Gradio. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me. Appreciate it, guys.